Yo, what's up, YouTubers? Hey, I was reading about it was about the last couple of plagues there, and it was in Egypt, and that God stirred it. The Pharaoh asked Aaron and Moses to ask God to cut him some slack, and they did, and God sent a real strong wind, and it blowed all the locusts all out of Egypt and everything. And then after that, it explains where he hardened Pharaoh's heart again, wouldn't let him go. And then it got explained to him to have the first Passover. And he explains that they established the ordinance, and he says, this is an ordinance everlasting. Okay, so that's a big deal right there. That's a big deal, a very big deal. It's to keep this forever, and that speaks to our everlasting, the eternal, and then keep doing it, of course, and then keep it in your head, but remember to observe it and go through the motions. That's that Seder dinner where I don't want to say ritual, but it's kind of like a ritual. But the talking about it and singing songs about it and everything else like that, the hand-me-down of it all, because we got the book knowledge and all kind of videos and tubes and all this kind of stuff, but the role-playing, the play type of deal, like we had, when I was in school, we would do a Christmas play or whatever, okay, but the Seder dinner, and playing that out, and remembering all this stuff and having the matzah and stuff like that. Now they've added a lot of things, but the specifics of marking the doorpost with the blood of the lamb and a lot of that stuff, you can read about it. It's in Exodus, and I was reading that today, and that was real good. So I wanted to just hop on here and break that up. And I believe it was 50 days after, of course, Messiah gave his life and came back and everything. And then 50 days after that was Pentecost, which was Feast of Tabernacles, I think. It was one of the feast days. But they were instructed, because Jesus passed, came back, said something about tarrying in Jerusalem, and then he would send the helper. Okay, so we got sent the helper. So that's a major thing that people have today, and a concept that we have today that they did not have Old Testament time. You know what I mean? So some of the stuff now is different. You know, the culture's different and all this. Well, a lot of it's different. And some for better and some for worse. Right? Like the understanding that my sins are forgiven type of deal is the sacrifice of what it does for us is it's the understanding of it in the modern culture is barely scraping the surface of what it really is. And then way back, they had a greater understanding because they went down there and actually took their goat or their sheep, and they would actually kill it. You know what I mean? They would give it to the priest, and he'd check it for 3 days, and then he'd give it as a sacrifice to, temporarily cover their sin for that year. You know what I mean? And they did this every year. You know what I mean? So when we consider that nowadays, because we're not watching, same way with when people pray over their food, say somebody's eating a piece of chicken, and they say, "Oh, thanks for the chicken." It's just kind of nonchalant. But if you go out back and wring a chicken's neck and pluck the feathers and process a chicken, and then you're sitting down to dinner that day, immediately you're going to be like, "God, thank you for the life of this chicken who gave its life so that I can eat." That would be more present. And we lose something, at the, drive-through at McDonald's. We don't have that same prayer, because we're not seeing it, you know what I mean? And I think now this is just a side note, but I think a lot of those, I think a lot of the urban problems would be solved with homestead life and harvesting your own food. Like when people actually, everybody I know that actually produces their own food, it goes through that process, and rodeo kind of folk. You see a lot of it down there around Houston, and it's it'll be white, black, Mexican. Rodeo people are rodeo people. If you know, you know. And when they pray and when they live and their passion and all this other kind of stuff, it's they're on a different level of exuberance. They have a different level of health. They got a different concept of integrity and do right and all sort of kind of stuff that is fantastic, and that gets lost in the urban. And one day we had these chickens, I got some chickens. They were hens. They were $3 a piece, so we got 3,000 of them, and they showed up, and I was like, oh wow, I really got to deal with this. So the second day there was eggs everywhere. Anyway, the hens were selling for $18 at the sale, and we thought, well, we make some money on this. And they were chicken house culls. This is about 8 years ago, and my buddy had one of his properties had some old chicken houses on there, a 6-house farm, and I know how to build those buildings and do all the equipment and everything. So I took parts and pieces from the dilapidated and made one good one. But we took those chickens and we'd let them go outside, right? So we herd them out into the yard in between the deals there. We had a ditch for water, whatever, and we had to take those chickens one by one and stick their hand to water because they didn't know what water was, because they'd been inside that chicken house, right? And then they didn't know how to roost or get off the ground. They didn't know the difference between they didn't know what danger was. And then they would clump up and just I don't know, something that a chicken in your yard would never do. Chickens in your yard, they just walk around, scratch around or whatever. They go roost in the trees at night, you know what I mean? And it's just, they're chickens. You don't have to do nothing. You got to feed them a little bit in the winter. That's about it, And then if you're in the city though, if you're down there in a suburb, I mean they'll build a $1,200 chicken house and do all this stuff and have to put litter in it and take it out and all kind of a crazy amount of work. But where I'm from, your chickens just run loose in the yard unless they're fighting chickens. That's a whole different thing because you got to keep them separate or they'll kill each other. So that's a thing. Anyway, these chickens were just industrial chickens. They'll lay brown eggs for about 2 years, and then they lose their peak performance, and they go into molt. So they lose all their feathers. They're ugly. They're real ugly. And but if you treat them right, oh man, you get 10 years of eggs out of them, right? So they're only, if you buy a little chick and feed it until it starts having eggs, I mean, you got $60 in your first dozen eggs, easy, right? Well, if you buy this one that's 2 years old, been laying eggs or whatever, $3, and boom, here's your chicken. You got an egg the next day. Apparently, you get about 2,600 eggs the very next day. And I was not expecting that, but anyway, so I was like the egg king for a while, and I got out of it because I was like, I'm not witnessing, so I had to choose the calling over the cash. And anyways, the people in the city versus the people in the country are a lot like the chickens. It's due to the environment. Okay, I was down there in Florida after the hurricanes and stuff, and I had went down there roofing, but then the hurricane come through, and then the power's out and everything else like that. These people didn't have a clue what to do. You know what I mean? And I'm out here eating bacon cheeseburgers, and the neighbor's like, all I got's a bag of French fries. They didn't know how to cook French fries on the grill. You know, I'm like, well, get you a skillet and just put it on the fire and, you know, pretend that fire is the stove and just kind of go from there. They're like, oh, I never thought of that. Or, you know, they didn't know nothing. They were from the city. And it wasn't that they wasn't capable. It wasn't that it wasn't easy to teach. You know what I mean? It was no big deal. It was just getting that concept into their head so they could do their thing. And how much of that is witness? You know what I mean? You read the Bible. Look, there's a rainbow right now. So you're reading your Bible and you're getting that in your head, and you get a certain understanding, and then you convey that to the people around you, and you share that, and you listen to them, and you ponder and stuff. And our current form, go to church, sit there, get preached to, you know, praise and worship stuff, pass the hat, whatever, is one form of doing that. But the interactive, you know, where there was like a debate stage, you know what I mean? And that's kind of like your podcasting, you know what I mean? That's more accurate to what Jesus was doing. You know what I mean? He's just sitting there with like 12 people, and they're interacting. Like, I mean, the Sermon on the Mount is lengthy, don't get me wrong, but everywhere else you see there's this constant interaction. I mean, look at the time he spent at the well, you know, and speaking with the woman at the well, and then how all that went, you know, the lead up, what went down, and then the after effect. None of that was a you know, preaching at you sermon. You know what I mean? It was a thing. You know what I mean? There was an event. There's a time and a place for this type of deal, and there's each type of witness. And just because you're not in a building, in a setting that's like one dude giving a lecture, it's just as much, if not more, church service. If you and a buddy are sitting down in front of some folks and doing a podcast or a TED Talk or whatever, you know what I mean? Some type of debate. You know, sometimes you'll see the politicals where you got several heads of state, you know what I mean? And they're doing it, and they're talking about stuff. So you get these men that are respected in their knowledge of what's going on, and they've been called to certain positions within the kingdom. You know what I mean? Like it's a kingdom. It's like a military. We're in a spiritual war. And you got to understand you got to understand and have an inkling of that, and you got to get that in your head. Like we are in a war. I'm a spirit in a body, and I'm warring in the spirit with my mind, will, and emotions. And I'm choosing to be the light. You know what I mean? And in that moment, the darkness flees because I've made that choice to be the light. But I can flip flop on this deal so fast. You know what I mean? So fast. I can get all squirreled up and out of sorts with my cohorts. You know, to whatever degree. You know what I mean? I might get sideways with the safety lady because I went over on my time, and then if I get an inspection and the DOT sees it, I'll have to pay a fine and, you know, CSA points and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So there's different degrees but I'm accountable to the safety department here at the job, which keeps me out of trouble with law enforcement, right? So like I want to be accountable to my fellow man, so I don't fall into eternal judgment. You know what I'm saying? And by being accountable to my fellow man, you know, that's your iron sharpens iron type of deal. And then you can really paint yourself in a corner by establishing a hill to die on. Okay, so one of the things that we see over and over and over again is Jesus. Like at one point, they were mad at him or whatever because of what he said, and they didn't want to hear the truth. And thought he was blaspheming. So what the deal was, they run him plumb out of town. They're going to push him off a cliff. And it said Jesus passed through the crowd because it was not yet his time. You know what I mean? So the obedience for him and the humility of being, you know, his meekness. You know what I mean? Like he could smash them all out, and he did not. You know what I mean? And so he passed through the crowd because it wasn't yet his time. You know what I mean? So us, we might be called to a position or in a situation to whatever degree with our affiliates, and in that moment you have to let them. You got to pass through the crowd. You know what I mean? Like, you can't let it go through too far. You know what I mean? And that's based on the timing and authority that God has instructed you. So you just want to be obedient, whether you like it or not. You want to swallow your pride because, you know, a haughty look comes before a fall, and pride comes before destruction, right? So, you know what I mean? You want to be confident in Christ. You want to be confident in His will, but Skip's will might not be the same thing. So Skip has to endure and be appropriate in each situation all throughout the day and night. And just like with anything else, you know, it gets easier with time and stuff. And the number of times that you're on point with biblical standards and is perceived by others as some blasphemous whatever, you're going to run into that a lot. You're going to be a peculiar person out here, being the hands and feet and being the you know, obedient servant of the Creator and set apart and called to this calling of yours, whatever that may be, whatever that looks like in your life. You're going to be whatever you are. Speaking personally, I don't understand it 90% of the time, but it just keeps working out, and it's very difficult, but it's totally worth it. So it's like the burden is light. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't call it a burden for no reason, but light is elimination and also weight, right? So if it starts getting real heavy, then maybe I'm not putting it on the altar enough. Maybe I'm taking it hard instead of laying it down at the altar. Okay, and that's church speak for, okay, like anxiety. You know what I mean? It's at the end of the world, nuclear war, whatever. Like, what are you gonna do about it if it is? What are you gonna do about it if it ain't? You know what I mean? Like, do your job today. Let tomorrow worry about itself. And trust the Creator has got your back. I was worried about this stuff. I'm about to pass a way station right now. I got 3 scale tickets. I spent an hour and a half today making sure this thing is legal because they actually overloaded me by 160 pounds. And when I slide the tandems with this particular trailer, it moves in intervals of 262 pounds. So one way, I'm 180 pounds over on my drives, and the other way I would be 210 pounds overweight on the trailer. So danged if you do, danged if you don't type of deal. However, as I drive and burn fuel, the truck becomes lighter. You know what I mean? So I did the math and everything else like that. And the weight of fuel minus the distance to the next scale house was going to be, you know, I would burn off 190 pounds, and I was 180 pounds over. So I'd just barely be legal. I'd be like 33,990
Keep right to stay on I-70 East.
and you know, if 33,990 is real close to 34,000, and that's the limit, right? So, but I have prayed, and when I woke up and I prayed, I'm doing DOT week and all that kind of stuff. And I said, Lord, I said, just help me get through this deal.
Keep right to stay on
Everywhere
I-70
been closed when I drive by here. So that's real cool. I gotta write this down. 5, 8, 9, 7. always the best when like you need provisions, and then you park as close as you can get to a grocery store, and then you walk to the store, and then you got to carry all your stuff back. You know what I mean? So that's one of my favorite ways, because I like farm boy strength, not look good at the gym strength. So I work out. You know what I mean? I got my stuff in here to work out with, different weights and stuff like that or whatever. But one day I was thinking to myself, I was like, why do I do 10 cents a 10 whatever exercise and I'm wore out? But I used to go and get on the roof and I'd work for 9 hours straight with just like 2 beers. You know what I mean? And I was like, maybe I'm psyching myself out. So the bonus today is use music, quit counting. If you do push-ups and you don't count, you can do more push-ups. I don't know why. I guess you're psyching yourself out. It's got to be something in your head. I don't know. Whistle while you work type of thing. I don't know. But it's really true. And then if you really want to, this is your bonus on the bonus. Wherever you're working out at or whatever like that, if you have a mattress, because being here in the truck, sometimes bad weather, whatever else like that, I just do push-ups in the black back there, right? So the mattress moves. You would be amazed. However tough you are, don't matter. But you start doing push-ups on a mattress, and you will find that it makes you wiggle, and your body, you try to like naturally stabilize all through the push-up. And it's I don't know what it's doing for me, but after years of doing push-ups on a mattress, they're definitely harder. So that's one way to up your workout game. And then just seeing that, like, I know the destination's the grocery store, and there it is over there. I go there, you grab like a couple gallons of water, 4 or 5 pounds of meat, some can of corn, whatever, you know what I mean? And then you walk back carrying those bags. Next time you get out of your truck and walk in the house with groceries, walk a 5K with that. You know what I mean? Like, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's and you don't have a choice. You know what I mean? So like you walk there, it's like la-di-da. I'm just waddling like a duck. You know what I mean? And then I get there and I get my hands full and everything like that. Every time, halfway back, I'm like, I bought too much stuff. And so that helps you in the grocery store. You know what I mean? And you eyeball this or that. And, everybody talks about, trigger insulin with sugar, bread, whatever. Do this, don't do that, whatever. Count calories. How about volume? Nobody talks about the volume. Like, how much does the food you eat physically weigh? You know what I mean? Like, are you eating a 16-ounce steak and a 14-ounce potato and and that's just dinner, but you done had breakfast and lunch, so you got the weight of some eggs and well, I ain't hamburger meat, but a lot of times people have eggs and bacon and toast and all this kind of stuff. So like what's the volume? Like actually put your food on a scale and just track that for a week and see what you think about that. You'll find out real quick that steak is healing you for a reason. It's because you're eating food. That other stuff ain't food. It's not food. I don't think anything in the shape and packaging of a candy bar is food. I don't think that, like when I walk into a truck stop, pretty much boiled eggs and milk, and that's suspect, and water, and I gotta filter that. Everything else is terrible. Everything. Every single thing else. Nothing else is worth eating in that whole place. And man, it's hard. It's real hard. It's real hard to eat a clean diet and be a truck driver for sure. get your exercise in. And read your Bible. And be at home for your anniversary. And pay all the bills. And keep the grass mowed. And do your ministry stuff. I mean, it's so much. It's so much. I don't understand. I don't understand how anybody is bored. You know, I really don't. I mean, there's so much work to be done in this whole world. It's like it's hard to take a day off. Anyway, that's it. Rock Hill. Go get them. I'm gonna put a song on here. I Know Who I Am. It's a worship song. There's a church called Gloria Zion, and that guy sings down there. They sang this song every time I went down there for about 5 years, and it is fantastic in a group setting. Take it to your praise and worship at your congregation. Share it with them. Let them know what's up. It's a powerful song, and it's one that after the whole church knows the lyrics, you can really jam out. You can really, really jam out to it. It's called I Know Who I Am, and it's a good song. I'm gonna put it in the description, comments, linky thingy. I don't know, but yeah, that's what's up. And everlasting is incredible. I'd like to point out that a guy told me, he said if the math ain't mathing on the Trinity deal, okay, so if it takes 1,000 bricks to build a house, so you'd be 1 brick plus 1 brick plus 1 brick plus 1 brick, all the way to 1,000, that still equals 1 house. So your math math has units. I have, fingers, toes, hair, skin, eyes, everything, but I'm just one person. My person has a mind, will, emotion, a body. You know what I'm saying? And a cardiovascular system that I want to keep healthy. You know what I mean? But I'm still just one dude. You know what I mean? And then, so remember that math has units. And when you're making it make sense, the math has to add up. So when you're reading stuff and it clicks and jives in your head, be that interpreter to take that biblical understanding and deliver that to your buddy. Like as soon as you find anything good, immediately phone a friend and be like, do you know God forgives us the way we forgive others? Or whatever it may be. Because if you're good with a little, He's going to give you a lot. That ain't nothing to sneeze at. It's actually very beautiful when you start learning about God's economy and God's way of doing stuff and how He counts stuff and what wealth is, your personal wealth. You know what I mean? You got your health, you got family, you got cash, you got stuff, your skills, your intellect, what can you actually do? It's amazing. It's amazing when you start finding these different metrics. You know what I mean? People say, what's your net worth? You know what I mean? I'm like, is there a gross worth and a net worth? And then when you figure worth and worthy and worthship, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can assign different values to this stuff. Money's just easy to calculate because numbers. You know what I mean? It's easy to figure out how much this truck weighs with a scale. It's quantifiable in a very finite way. You know what I mean? It's pretty easy. But what's your soul worth? What's your skills worth? How much is a mother's love worth? You see what I'm saying? It gets a little bit more difficult to quantify, and but those are all part of your net worth, you know, and building on that, you know, it don't do you no good to be, you know, Rockefeller rich and crippled up dying. What profited a man to gain the whole world if he loses his soul doing it? That's talking about the afterlife. I mean, that's in the yonder to come, you know. Lay up for yourself treasure in heaven, not on earth, because, you know, the rust and thieves and everything here, and then, you know, where your treasure is, your mind will be also. You know what I mean? So, you know, be that witness and help God redeem the lost souls. You know, when you die, you're taking your soul up to heaven. You know what I mean? And that's his kid. So I'm going to try to lay up God's children in heaven so we can all hang out forever and do this giant Jesus rock concert. You know what I mean? We're like Jesus is on stage. We're all wearing white. We're just like, or whatever. I don't know. Oh, there that rainbow came back again. I'll start talking again. I just love it, man. I just love it. And, you know, I can sit here and just talk to the dash all day long. All day long. I can do this all day long because I'm excited. I am exuberant, and I am passionate about the ways of God. It is so interesting to me. It is so good. It is so, like, the downside is good. You know, the heartache and the struggle and all this other kind of stuff, you know what I mean, that gives me a growth into empathy and stuff like that. You think I would give a spit about the Uyghurs in China dying? I don't know them people. I barely heard something about it on the internet about they was even a person and that they were, you know, getting their organs harvested or whatever, you know, type of deal. I don't know nothing about that. But man, because I've been following God, I hear that and just, man, my heart goes out to him. I'm just like, man, God, help these people. I mean, they got a hospital next to the prison, and these rich people go over there and they check into the hotel or whatever, and they got their procedure. They check all their, you know, blood type and vitals and stuff, and then they find that all the prisoners, they got them on lockdown, you know what I mean? They got all their information already, and they just find the one that'll fit, go in there and harvest his organs. You know what I mean? They just take that prisoner that's been there working, doing whatever, slave labor, say, you know, all right, you know, number 47, come with me. You know, they think they're going to, you know, get a shower in that day or whatever. You know, they probably have a shower or something. They probably don't tell them the truth. You know what I mean? They probably just have this special deal or whatever, and then they just go in there. You know what I mean? They just harvest their organs, and then take those organs and put them in frickin' George Soros or somebody. You know what I mean? Bro. I mean, dude. What? You know what I mean? And they at scale, factory scale. I mean, we're talking China. You know what I mean? And they're just doing this every day. You know what I mean? And then everybody's like, well, we gotta lift the tariffs because I need cheap plastic crap. And I'm like, I just want to go back to Oklahoma and live at the end of the last dirt road. Everybody leave me alone. Just leave me alone. But I can't do that. The good men do not think that Satan will prevail. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do and everything. And if I did know, I'd probably be like overwhelmed and wouldn't be able to get it done. So I'm just going to finish out today. I'm going to finish out this video right now, then I'm going to finish out the day with a joyful heart. And I'm going to pray for the people that need God, which is all of us, as if they're God's kids, and try to lay up treasure in heaven with the next person I see down here. I'm going to be like, you know, talk to them or whatever. I want to encourage you all to reach out and talk to them and start getting out there. You know what I mean? Hit that coffee pot at the gas station. You know, if you don't know somebody, and you know, say you're from a town where you know everybody, and then you see that person you don't know, that's your guy. You know what I mean? And then if you're in a city, which you probably are, because most people are, well, hey, That's perfect. You know, the anonymous. When you try to tell somebody, this happened to me 4 times a day. Try to tell somebody about Jesus and just got shot down. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was terrible. It was not good. They didn't want to hear it or nothing, and yeah, they were just sour to the thought of it. And next person, 4 times today. Well, I mean, are we gonna let that stop us? You know what I mean? No, of course not. Of course not. So just keep striving and keep going, and you know, and that's like the downside. Like sometimes you talk to somebody, you know what I mean, and it's this wonderful experience. And sometimes you talk to people and it's a sour experience. Either way, I'm back in the truck driving down the road. May or may not see him again. You know what I'm saying? So even the downside, I'm driving away and I'm just like, God, whatever that person was sour about, whatever happened to him or whatever, and just reach him, you know, because it's only Holy Spirit that really reaches them, right? So that's the burden is light. Like even then, it's light on me because they're not rejecting me, they're rejecting God. And well, they might be rejecting me, and I don't care about that anyway. So I am a reject. What are you talking about? I mean, I make an hour and 45-minute video, and the stupid YouTube says, you know, 37 views and 12 likes, and you know, I just sit there and just watch it, just flicker, and there's like, you know, 1 like. For some reason, it always leaves 1 like and 2 views. You know what I mean? So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you know, 2 views. You know, it said 37 views a second ago, so something ain't right. Anyway, I mean, it just is what it is. But even in that struggle, I'm learning perseverance. When you're riding with the Bible, when the Creator is your God, and you've lifted Him to that status in your life, you're unstoppable. Let me say that again. With the Creator, is you lift that, you know what I mean, to be your Elohim. Like the Creator is my God, and I'm serving God. Once you are unstoppable. You literally can't be stopped. There ain't nothing anybody can do against it. You know what I mean? They can take your stuff, it don't matter. That stuff's not my God. They can take your family, they can take your stuff, they can, you know, crucify you, whatever. Don't matter. That's not my God. I don't need to look like a supermodel. I don't need to look like Mr. Universe. I don't need to have perfect teeth. I don't need to all this, you know, fancy house and all kinds of. I need food and clothes. That's it. Everything else is extra. And if I got it, praise the Lord. And if the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Either way, the Lord is good. And I have lost a lot. I understand loss and death. That ain't what this is about. This is about life and truth. Once I lived in God, the Creator, the actual God, to be God, and I serve Him, I'm just running out the clock at this point. You know what I'm saying? It's a wrap. I won the game. I'm just running out the clock. And in the meantime, I'm going to put some more points on the board and lay them souls up in heaven, because that's what God told me to do. And I don't want any of His kids to not make it. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be up there in heaven and be like, see that guy in hell over there burning on fire? He would have made it
merge onto
if he didn't talk to
I-70
me. You know what I mean? And then him show me some kind of deal where, like, you know, I talked myself out of it because I was embarrassed because I had a snaggle tooth or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I was embarrassed. Well, what if they don't want to hear the gospel? Yeah. Well, what if they're on fire? What if they don't want to burn? What if they don't want to burn? Do you want to be on fire? I will take a. I need to do with the polls on there. Do you want to be on fire? You don't want to be on fire. Yeah, I'm assuming you don't.
Continue
All
on
right,
Indiana
we're over here. We got the
59 south
petrol
for 1
over
mile.
here. We got the road ranger over there. We're going to try this road ranger out. Seems pretty full. This whole area seems full. It always is, though. If you get a CDL, don't park at the entrance. Go to the back and park. Get a little exercise walking. You got to park right there in the front. I don't know why people do that. Just park right there where you can. All right, Rock Hill boys, go get them.